everybody, Matt Outdoorsman here. Been away for a little bit, a little over 2 weeks. Had some people reaching out to me in the prepping community asking, hey, you all right, Matt Outdoorsman? What's going on? Haven't seen you on YouTube in a while. Guys, it's life outside of YouTube, you know. Got some business to handle. Got a little hectic for a little bit, but, you know, I took care of that business and I'm back. All right. I will be continuing my weekly videos and trying my best to keep you people up to date and keep spreading that message. All right. So let's hop into it. All right. Today's topic for me, guys, hits home. All right. And it's because of the profession that I work in. For most of you folks that know, I do work in law enforcement, specifically speaking corrections. So the topic of this video today is how law and order in this country is under attack. All right. And we're going to talk about why it's under attack, who's behind it, and how we can fight back against that. All right. With that said, guys, the department that I work for, all right, the 15 years that I've been in this business, a handful of years ago, my department came up with a policy regarding social media, all right? And basically, it's a policy where they don't want us talking about what's going on a job, you know, and it's a very good reason why they came up with this policy, all right? And it's a very good reason why I don't identify which department I work for or what state that I live in, okay? For anybody on here that may know or may have guessed, I will neither confirm or deny it, okay? And I gotta protect myself, all right? Because this is the world we live in, all right? We are not free to speak our minds when it comes to speaking against the narrative or the agenda, right? And hence, this is why I make these videos. But again, this topic hits home for me because, yeah, the rule of law is under attack in this country, you know. So, I mean, how many videos have you seen on social media, i.e. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, that you see these police officers or these law enforcement agencies basically following orders from these liberal lunatic administrators or higher ups, whatever you want to call it, in their departments, and going after law-abiding citizens for complete and utter nonsense. You know, for instance, I saw a video the other day. I think it was on Twitter, and it showed police basically coming into the house of a family and arresting the father of the family because he pierced his son's ear. And apparently in that state, there is a law against getting your ears pierced if you're a minor. I guess you have to sign some waiver, some consent form or whatever. And, you know, this father bypassed that. And for whatever reason, or what I'm trying to say is, law enforcement got word of it, that this father was piercing his son's ear inside his home. And it took three or four officers to go in, basically rough this guy up and arrest him and drag him out in handcuffs in front of his family, in front of his neighbors, and arrest this guy because he pierced his son's ear, all right? I'm gonna put the link of that video in the description of this video. You guys can see it for yourselves. It's disturbing. There was another video I saw where there was a town meeting in the state where you had the town council and the mayor, and you had a group of citizens in a town hall style setup meeting where citizens were basically asking questions and voicing their concerns about policies and agendas that the town council were pursuing, okay? And because some of these citizens were asking questions, they were being taken out of that town hall meeting and being arrested, all right? I have no words for what's going on, you know? We have a big movement in this country where, you know, it's the Back to Blue movement, you know? And with that said, when you see things like this, how can you back the blue? Okay, when you see law enforcement officers carrying out the orders of these tyrannical leaders, all right? It makes me sick to my stomach, all right? And listen, before I go any further, this is not a video about bashing my fellow officers in blue or gray. I call it my profession gray because I'm a corrections officer. So this isn't one of those videos. This is basically a breakdown of why law and order in this country is under attack. And you know, I'm not sticking up for these folks neither. I'm not bashing them, but I'm not sticking up for them. All right, my stance is this, and I'm telling you right now, if I'm given some kind of order that I feel goes against the Constitution or the oath that I took as a law enforcement officer, I would disobey that order and I would deal with the consequences later on, okay? And anybody that knows me personally and that follows me on here, all right, you guys know damn fucking well I'll do it, all right? For the rest of you folks that just know me from just finding me on here from other places, I guess all you can do is take my word for it. And whether you do or not, I really don't give a rat's ass. You know, so yeah, there's a reason why we have this policy, this social media policy where we can't post on platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, describing or naming our agency. So this is why I never say where I'm from or say where I work. You know, I never identify where I work. I just tell you that I live in New England. I live in a very blue state, and we have leaders in this state that are pretty much borderline tyrannical. You know, when the lockdowns happened a few years ago with the pandemic, that was case in point right there. You know, we couldn't even walk in a park, you know, and get fresh air and exercise. You know, they had parks gated off and barriers in front of them, and it was ridiculous. So I digress. All right, so I took some very extensive notes and did a lot of research on what's going on. All right, so as far as prepping goes, guys, listen, you know, I had somebody email me a little while back saying, hey, Mad Outdoorsman, you know, you claim to be a prepper and an outdoorsman, but you make a lot of videos talking about politics. Well, fellas and ladies, it goes hand in hand, right or wrong. I mean, politics and the lunacy that we see going on in this country is the reason why I prep. It's probably the reason why most of y'all prep. You know, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's why I do it. You know, so it's because of the fucking nonsense that I see happening every day. All right, so with all that said, lots of bullet points and notes. Obviously, places to avoid during SHTF when it comes to rule of law is, you know, cities and suburban areas, you know, places with high population density. I have sang that song on a lot of my videos, you know, for obvious reasons. And you got to ask yourself, why has there been a mass exodus in these areas in the recent years? I mean, we have had a mass exodus from some of the largest cities in this country, folks. You know, New York, Los Angeles, Houston, San Francisco, Chicago, right? And it's because the level of violence in these cities is on a constant rise. Okay. You know, mass shootings basically happening on a weekly basis, sadly and unfortunately. Some of these cities on a daily, right? Chicago is a great example. Theft, right? Completely out of control in this country, you know. How many news stories have we seen about big box stores and retailers closing up shop and just moving out of these cities? You know, you got Walmart that is closing up, you know, multiple stores all over the country because they're losing billions of dollars, you know, because of theft, right? So they're moving out. They've had it, you know. I mean, you take Chicago alone. They just recently announced that they're closing 4 Walmart stores, you know. And I see tons of videos on Twitter of these stores getting looted. You know, people, like mobs of people just walking into these places and taking what they want and just leaving, stealing this stuff without any consequence, pretty much. You know, Whole Foods, right? They have a flagship store in San Francisco, California. All right, they just opened up a year ago. They're closing, all right, for the same reason, because of theft, you know, because of safety concerns. And it's happening all over the place, guys. You know, so you got to ask yourself, once all these stores and these retailers close up and move out of these cities and go to safer areas, what is next for these mobs of looters? You know, where are they going to go next? You know, are they going to go to the suburbs and start looting people's homes and robbing people out there? You know, where it's pretty much easy prey. You know, you got to ask yourself that, you know. So yeah, this is why I make these videos, guys, so you can prepare for these kind of things, so you can have that knowledge, you know. And I know a lot of you guys do. So, but let's break it down. Who's to blame for these deteriorating conditions that are happening in these cities? All right. The first thing that comes to my mind is the leadership of these cities. You know, the city leadership, all the way up to the state leadership. You know, and it's usually the leadership in these cities with these deteriorating conditions are usually run by Democrats. Right? I mean, it's just the truth. California, guys. everybody talks about California and how that's like pretty much the liberal paradise out there. And, or the, you know, the deteriorating conditions. You have people living on the streets in some of these major cities, you know, where they're urinating and defecating on the sidewalks and living in tents. And again, it's liberal cities, you know, hence why there has been a mass exodus of over 500,000 people leaving that state, you know, from the year 2020 to 2022. 500,000 people have left the state of California because they've just had it. Excuse me. So moving forward with that, you know, it's like, if you're one of those folks that lives in a blue state, you know, you got to really ask yourself, is it worth it, right? And you got to try to probably set your sights on trying to get out of those places. And excuse the background noise. I do have company over at the house right now. So I hope that's not picking up on here, but if it is, it is. But the thing is with these, you know, with trying to leave these areas, it's becoming more difficult from a financial standpoint the longer you wait. You know, real estate and, you know, desirable areas like rural areas, it's become expensive for most folks, most middle class folks, you know, so there's that. So the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be to leave these areas. All right. And you gotta like really consider the fact that this problem, it's a problem that's not going to go away anytime soon, guys. All right. So where does it start? Who can we identify that is the root cause of this problem? All right. District attorneys, we can look at them. All right. A very good example of that would be our prior president getting indicted on these charges by this DA out of New York, right? We've all seen the news on it, okay? So you got to ask yourself why this DA is going forward with this agenda, you know? And that's what it is, guys. That's the operative word here, agenda. You know, once upon a time, DAs were a respected, and the district attorney's office used to be a respected and trusted institution in this country. You know, so with that said, they had a lot of discretion to pretty much go out and do their jobs with the trust of the people, okay, to basically say, hey, we trust you to do your job to enforce the law. And that's exactly what a DA's job is when you break it down. Their job is to enforce the rule of law, okay? However, if you get a DA that is inserted into that position, okay, and funded by an individual or a group of individuals that have lots of money, all right, and those individuals have a certain agenda or narrative, all right, you're picking up what I'm putting down here, all right, then that DA is basically going to he's going to follow that narrative, right? All right, and we're seeing this. We're seeing it out of New York, and we're seeing it out of a lot of other places around the country, a lot of other cities, okay? the globalist elites, folks, they see the vulnerability, okay? They see the vulnerability in our justice system, okay? And that vulnerability is pretty much the DAs, the district attorneys, okay? And when they can get a district attorney, all right, to pretty much turn their back on the Constitution and the rule of law, this is why you see criminals doing their thing, all right? And because I'm going to tell you right now, criminals, not all of them, are stupid, all right? They know that they're going to get away with the fucking shit they get away with, all right? And on the flip side, you've got law-abiding people, citizens, all right, like all of us here, hopefully, that pretty much, I don't want to use the word scared to fight back, but yeah, that's pretty much what it is. A lot of these law-abiding folks are scared to fight back because they're afraid of getting prosecuted and losing everything, their job, their homes, everything they've worked hard for. All right. And you know what? I don't blame them for feeling like that, because that's basically what's happening. That big story down in, what was it, Texas, where you had that Uber driver that was driving through a mob of protesters, that three-letter group of protesters that begins with B, right? And one of those protesters was carrying an AK-47 assault rifle, and he pointed that rifle at this Uber driver, and this Uber driver, he happened to be packing heat, and he shot and killed that protester. All right. From my standpoint and my viewpoint, that's self-defense. All right. Right, wrong, and indifferent, that's self-defense. All right. When you got a mob of people surrounding your vehicle, banging on it, all right, trying to get you out of the vehicle, preventing you from passing through, all right, and then you got one asshole pointing a fucking assault rifle at you, and you happen to be packing heat, and you defend yourself, that's self-defense. All right. This guy got charged with murder. Okay. He got convicted of murder. All right. So he is currently sitting in jail because of that. All right. And that's the thing. You got these DAs that they protect these rioters and these looters. And you got these DAs that go after these law-abiding folks that are just simply trying to protect themselves. You have a right to self-defense, all right? And you are getting in trouble for it. You're going to jail for it, There was a shop owner in New York, I think it was last summer, a bodega shop owner. That was all over the news too. Some woman walked in there to buy some groceries, and she tried to use her EBT card, and for whatever reason the card wouldn't work. It got declined. She didn't have the money. She started verbally attacking this guy and threatening him, and she told this shop owner that her boyfriend was going to come back and deal with him, and that's exactly what happened. Her boyfriend comes into the store and goes after this guy and starts to physically assault this guy, right? So this shop owner, fearing for his life, ended up stabbing his attacker. Well, he got thrown in jail for it. It's an upside down world we live in. So why are these law enforcement officers putting handcuffs on these people and arresting them? I have no words. I have no words for it. I mean, I'm glad that I work in a prison and I'm not a police officer and I am facing that stuff. But with that said, working in a prison, we're starting to see the same thing. And this is the part where I come in, where I will not identify where I work and I will not confirm or deny it if somebody happens to know what state I work in. We see the same thing. We are starting to see the pendulum swing the other way, where the pendulum, what I'm talking about, where it's swinging towards the inmates now, where they are starting to run the institution, right? What's that saying? The inmates are running the asylum. Yeah, we're starting to see it inside the walls, guys. Obviously we have a rule of law inside the prison system, where if an inmate, breaks a rule, he gets disciplined for it, and he gets written up and goes to a hearing, and then from that hearing, he pleads guilty or not guilty, and then the hearing officer pretty much hands down the judgment and hands out the sanctions, which could be like disciplinary confinement time, upwards to like a year, depending on the infraction, or as little as just a few days in disciplinary confinement. Well, in my state, a few years ago, we had a person running for political office in my state, and he was trying to do away with disciplinary confinement inside the prisons. Okay, which is a very dangerous move, because let's say you got me here that gets assaulted by an inmate, viciously assaulted, and I'm getting hospitalized. Then that inmate will not face any segregation time, or disciplinary confinement time, whatever. I call it segregation time. We had an individual running for a high office in this state that was trying to do away with that, and our department, in particular, our union for our department fought back against that, and we met them halfway on it, because it was pretty much all we could do. We were pretty much pissing into the wind, when it came to trying to fight this, beating a dead horse, whatever you want to call it. So disciplinary policy for the prison that I work for got amended in a lot of ways, where it now favors the inmates, where, an infraction for assaulting staff, which once carried a lot of segregation time, got drastically reduced. I was assaulted a handful of years back by an inmate, and I wouldn't say it was a bad assault, but it was an assault. He put his hands on me. He was trying to choke me. And if it wasn't for my skill set, the set of skills that I know, and the help of my fellow officers that were nearby, it could have gotten really ugly. Let's just put it that way. That inmate only received 60 days of segregation time. Back when I started in this business, that inmate would have gotten a year in seg just for putting his hands on me. But I'm not going to get too much into that whole thing as far as my job goes. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you guys, that when it comes to law enforcement in this country, it's the leaders, it's our superiors that we have to answer to. It's the administrations that are enforcing these liberal policies, these lunatic liberal fucking policies. So how do we fight back against this? Well, that's the $6 million question, right? I mean, people need to fight back everywhere, everywhere. And I'm not saying picking up guns and, going to, the state houses and holding people hostage. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we have to fight back as far as voting. We got to speak up. We got to fight back in our schools, our school boards. We have to look at who's being elected to the school boards and ask those questions and see if their agenda is trying to indoctrinate our kids, right? We have to fight back at our prosecutors' offices, these district attorney offices, and find out who is funding them and what agenda they are following. All right, are they following the rule of law? Are they enforcing the Are they enforcing the law and following the Constitution, or are these people inserted in these positions from these elites that have this particular agenda? Right. So businesses, we these woke businesses refuse to support these woke businesses. So when I say fight back everywhere, that's what I mean. It's everywhere. Let your voice be heard, and ask those questions, express those concerns, because if people just keep doing what they're doing and allowing this tyranny to take place, it's going to tear our country apart. It's already has torn our country apart, Look at San Francisco, Seattle, LA, New York, Chicago, we've all seen it, the videos where you've got the homeless and the drug addicts and the mentally ill basically running these streets, and sleeping on the streets and defecating and urinating on the streets, and this is why stores like Target, Walmart, Walgreens, REI, Best Buy, that's why they're packing up and leaving these areas. It's because they know that the rule of law in this country has shit to bed. All right. So, and it's pretty much these crimes have gone undeterred and unpunished, and it's because these police officers, these law enforcement officers, pretty much know that when they lock up somebody for theft or whatever, for looting, that they're going to see this person probably 2 days later at, the coffee shop, that they're getting their breakfast at, so, and it's because of these weak policies, these DAs that just refuse to prosecute these crimes. All right. And then on the flip side, law enforcement itself, officers are under so much scrutiny nowadays. A lot of them are afraid to do their jobs because they feel that they're going to be doing the wrong thing, or being told that they're going to be doing the wrong thing, and their superiors are not going to back them up, So they just kind of go through the motions, right? And that's what we're seeing. So, yeah, this shit pisses me off. It really does. And yes, folks, this is deliberate. This is all deliberate because there is an agenda. And like I said, the globalists that insert these prosecutors into these positions and these state representatives into these positions, all right, and these other people in office into these positions, all right, they have recognized the vulnerabilities, okay? And that's why we're seeing what is happening all over this country. Okay? So, anyway, folks, that's pretty much all I have on the rule of law being under attack in this country. Take it for what it's worth. And let me know what you think in the comments. All right, like I said, Mad Outdoorsman is back. Look forward to my weekly videos, probably on Sundays or Mondays. Those are my days off. And I'll do my best to get you the information. All right, folks? Anyway, folks, thank you for watching Mad Outdoorsman.